Ellie, and earlier this year I spent 4 months travelling Australia's east coast in my self-converted Toyota Hiace, and in this video I will be documenting my travels in North Queensland, which were very diverse. Coming up I will be at waterfalls, at the Daintree, and I also took a trip to Magnetic Island, so check it out. I'm Ellie Wilder and you're watching Wilder in Motion. Picking up where we left off at my last vlog, I was at Airlie Beach, so I decided to visit Cedar Creek Falls, which is just a day trip out of Airlie Beach, and I made this a little stop off on my way to Townsville. I hadn't really been to any waterfalls throughout my travels, so this was just something nice and easy to add along the way, and just a little picturesque thing. The water was pretty cold and I wasn't staying long, so I didn't go swimming, so I just listened to some music. And then I also stopped off at this beach to break up the long journey to Townsville. The reason for going to Townsville was visiting Magnetic Island, which is a fairly well-known island on the lower part of the Great Barrier Reef. And the good thing about this is it's accessible via just the public ferry. It doesn't need to be a separate day trip. And you can see the topography of Townsville there with the slightly rockier mountain in the background. I caught the bus to Horseshoe Bay, which had a little netted swimming area, but it wasn't where the snorkeling was, so I walked back to Arcadia, just like my van. I went on this little bushwalking track to get back there. Even though I had bought an all-day bus pass to get around, the buses were pretty infrequent, so it was just easier to walk to Arcadia to get to Jeffrey Bay, which is where the first of 2 marked snorkel trails were on the island. As you can see, it was very low tide, so I could walk most of the way out and then just a little swim to the reef area. This was really interesting actually because I'd done so much snorkeling, like the bar was pretty high. There was a fair amount of coral. It was mostly more off to the right of the snorkel trail though, where there was a shipwreck, so definitely better off of the trail. There was plenty of coral but not so much fish, only really fish around the shipwreck area, and the coral was fairly one-colored. There was only a few times that I saw coral that was different, like a purple or a blue color, but the rest of it was fairly one-toned. And there wasn't the same diversity of fish species as I'd seen at other places. So this was something that I think is good to do if you happen to be in Townsville and you want a day trip to do, but I wouldn't say go out of your way to do it. It's not something that I would do again, and if you've compared it to the other snorkeling spots that I've been to on my travels in my previous vlogs, you can probably tell that this one doesn't quite have the same appeal, but then again, it is a lot more affordable. So I guess that's the trade-off for it, considering that it's just the cost really of the public ferry to get there. It is a pretty good way to see some coral if you are new to snorkeling and you just want to try it out and just get a taste of it before you commit to like a more expensive full day trip, like the kind of thing I did at the Whitsundays. So after spending about 45 minutes out there and hanging out on the beach, I decided to walk back around, and I saw these black cockatoos, which are a bit of a novelty for me because we don't have them in Sydney. And the snorkel trail was on that far side of the peninsula, but as you can see, the reef really does extend out a lot more, but it's kind of a lot of the same thing. I then passed through the main town, which is where the ferry picks up from, to head around to Nellie Bay, which is where the other marked snorkel trail is. I had just a little bit of a rest on the beach before I headed out to this snorkel trail, which was overwhelmingly just reeds. And I didn't go around the whole thing. I was a little confused because there was no one else snorkeling out here, although it was kind of in the evening and I think it was a weekday, so maybe just not a popular time for it, but likewise, there wasn't a whole lot to see. This was about as exciting as it got. I definitely would have spent more time around at Jeffrey Bay as opposed to doing this part because it wasn't hugely interesting and there was just so much reed. So after a slightly disappointing second snorkel, I headed back on the final ferry of the day to go back to the mainland to pack everything up to get ready to head up north further to get to the Daintree, which is something that I was really excited about, and this was just a nice view that I spotted along the way. And this particular place is called Mossman Gorge. and it's part of the Daintree. It's outside of Cairns and super picturesque and a really accessible way to see the Daintree. I did a 2.6 kilometer walk through and it was nice and flat and just really easy to do, to see lots of the rainforest wildlife and the waterways that ran through the gorge. And I found this little like quieter river sort of off the main part of the gorge, which made me feel like I was in a shampoo commercial or like on a postcard or one of those travel advertisements, because this felt like the life. I could have spent so long at Mossman Gorge. It was really, really nice. The water was pretty cold, but it was just super picturesque, super calming place to be in. I could have spent way longer here, but I didn't get there until the evening. And as you can see in the background, there's like this black thing walking off, and that is a pig, which I was so surprised to see. There were all these holes around and I was wondering what was making them. Turns out there are wild pigs there, but it was scared of me and I was scared of it, so it just ran off. And this is the main part of the gorge that people swim in. And then I had to catch the shuttle bus back to get ready for my next day. And today is the day that I tackle this 14.5 kilometer uphill and back downhill hike. So I think it's going to take me about 8 hours. It is 8:55 a.m. now. So I came across this beautiful river about 1 kilometer from the car park, which I did have to cross, and there was no bridge, so I took my shoes off so I wouldn't have wet socks. Even though I've been walking for 21 minutes, I finally reached the start apparently. And that's, as you can see, the ascent there. So it's now 9:15. I'm ready. I mean, it's a proper jungle track. This is honestly like the easiest part to walk so far. So I've been so out of breath I haven't been able to film. But I like that it's kept really natural, so I think this is what I wanted from the Daintree experience. Been walking for an hour, stopped to have some carbs and some Gatorade before I keep going. And this is what a lot of the path looked like. There was lots of crawling under and over things. It was kept totally natural, which gave it a really authentic experience. I also did get a blister and I just had to use band-aids that I already had. I did not plan for this to happen, so I was kind of rationing band-aids from the beginning. Really hope that it doesn't rain. It's not forecast to, but it's gone from all sun to all clouds. It is raining very, very lightly, which I guess is fitting for the rainforest, but it's forecast to only be just a little dot on the radar, so hopefully it won't get me too wet. So according to my Fitbit, it's been 5.3 kilometers since I started, and I passed the 1 kilometer marker when it said 2.8 kilometers on my Fitbit. So I feel sure that I've gone more than 1 kilometer since I saw that first sign, but I haven't seen the 2 kilometer marker yet, or the 3 kilometer for that matter. I mean, I'm definitely going the right way, but I wonder if I'm just missing these markers, even though the first one was pretty obvious. But I really hope my Fitbit's accurate and that I am 5.3 kilometers. Plus, I do feel like I'm a significant part of the way up. As you can tell, the canopy is a lot wider up here. So I guess we'll find out soon enough. I've entered a much damper, more typically rainforesty part, moss everywhere. So as it rains more at the top, I think that means I'm getting close. It's become very misty and it's raining a little bit again. So update, I just passed a snake. Lucky it was chill. It was brown. I was expecting green tree snakes, but annoyingly it was like exactly like these roots. Also, according to the map, once you reach this fern bit, you're 2 kilometers away from the lookout. Although I just passed someone who said that it's cloudy and you can't see anything anyway. So I'm just gonna walk up a little, and as you can see, the clouds blowing over there, so I think I'm gonna get quite damp. So yeah, I'll make a decision, see what I can see, and decide whether I should turn around or keep going. Well, it would be cool if I could see, but it's still insanely different landscape to what I've just been walking through. Given that, according to the topography, it's much flatter this section, I think I will continue because I don't think it's going to take me as long. We've got the first piece of infrastructure, which is honestly impressive. Like, how did they even get this here? I can only think that they like helicoptered it in, because I feel it would be pretty impossible to do it any other way. Alright, so I've turned around at the 4-kilometre mark for many reasons. First one being it was getting extremely and annoyingly dense, because I don't think many people go all the way to the end. Plus it's raining, and I don't want to be completely drenched the whole way back down. And because of that, there's these clouds, so I wouldn't be able to see anything anyway. And also, very annoyingly, there's leeches, and I was getting covered in them. So I've definitely had my rainforest experience, and by the time I get back to the car, I feel like I will have seen many different aspects of the Daintree. It's getting harder. And as I was walking up here, I remember thinking, oh, I'm so glad it's not raining, because otherwise I would be drenched brushing past all these leaves, which is another annoying thing about how dense it is. So that's definitely, I'm going to get very drenched when I walk through the ferns, even if it stopped raining, because I'm going to have to brush past all of them. I stopped filming at that point because it was pretty miserable from then on. It did not stop raining until I got back to the van, so I was truly soaked to the bone, and it took me 4 hours to get up to where I ended up turning around. It took me 4.5 hours to get back down. Even though it should have been quicker, it was just so slippery and so steep. So it's all muddy and slippery, smooth tree roots. So I was literally holding onto trees like hand railings so that when I inevitably fell, I could at least catch myself, because in some places there was quite a long way to fall, and I definitely did fall a few times. Despite my best efforts, I still have a mark on my arm from where I got slashed open by a tree root from one of the times that I fell. Ultimately though, I'm really glad that I picked a kind of rugged track, but if I were to do this again, I would go for something that's a flatter track so I could actually go at my own pace, and if I wanted to go faster, I'd have that option rather than being at risk of just sliding all the way back down if I were to do that. And while there's not much that can be done about the weather, it wasn't forecast to rain, but then again, they probably don't write the forecast based on some obscure part of the Daintree. As for Cedar Creek Falls, it's definitely a good little day trip out from Airlie Beach, or a great place to stop if you're traveling onwards further. So I'm really glad I went there. It was just super chilled out. You could definitely spend a couple of hours there. As for Townsville, the city itself, even though I really just kind of walked around it a little bit, I really did like the vibe of the area. It was just a really friendly place, and I could kind of see myself living there. There has been a couple of places like the Gold Coast and now Townsville that I felt like I could actually live and just had a really nice vibe. As for Magnetic Island, again, if you're looking for a day trip, it could be fun, but it's definitely not a must-see. It really is just for like an intro to snorkeling, but nothing super spectacular there. Mossman Gorge is so beautiful. I could have spent so much longer there. It was just a great place. Could have spent the whole day there, and I went via Cairns to get there. So next week's vlog is going to be of Green Island, which is accessed off of the Cairns coast, and that is the furthest north part of the Great Barrier Reef that I went to. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little vlog video. There will be another one next Saturday, or if you want to check out my van life content or my van builds, that will be linked in the description below. And if you want to join the journey, then be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.